Welcome back, you guys, and before Lonzo Ball took the crown of having the strangest looking jump shot in the NBA, an NBA player by the name of Kevin Martin had the NBA's weirdest looking jump shot. Kevin Martin was a 6'7" shooting guard that was one of the NBA's most efficient and forgotten scorers of the 2000s. Kevin never made an all-star game, but he had a pretty successful NBA career, and it seemed like he was going to keep playing into his mid-30s. In the 2015 season with Minnesota, he was averaging 20 points per game, and then after the next season, he retired. So what happened? The reason this topic is so interesting to me is because this was not too long ago, and I remember fans and media saying Kevin Martin was going to help the Spurs get past Golden State in 2016. So in the 2004 NBA draft, the Kings selected Kevin Martin with the 26th pick. In 6 seasons in Sacramento, he averaged 17 points and was their best player for a few seasons. Kevin went from averaging 10 points per game in his second year to 20 points per game in his third season, and he peaked out at 25 points per game in his second to last year with Sacramento. He was a pretty efficient scorer. He was top 10 in true shooting percentage. He had 3 seasons over 60% true shooting. Even though Kevin had a jump shot that started from the hip, he was known as a productive outside shooter. He had a couple of seasons where he shot over 40% from the three-point line, and Kevin was always in the top 20 in free throw makes and attempts. The Sacramento years were the best of his career. In 2007, he finished second in most improved player voting behind Monte Ellis, and once Ron Artest was traded, Kevin was the clear number 1 guy. I know a lot of NBA fans get irritated when they see players start contact with a defender so they can get a foul, like how sometimes James Harden does. Well, Kevin Martin was one of those players that seemed to always get a call when he'd pump fake or drive to the rim. Now, what was Kevin Martin not good at? He was not known as a playmaker, and he sometimes would become a black hole on offense, but what really stood out as his weakness was his defense. Throughout his career, Kevin was not a good defender. He was pretty skinny, and it was not hard for players to blow by him, so if he was having a poor shooting game, his flaws of bad defense and playmaking became more noticeable. At the 2010 trade deadline, he was involved in the 3-team trade between the Kings, Knicks, and Rockets that sent Tracy McGrady to the Knicks and Kevin Martin to Houston. For about 2 seasons, he was arguably their best player next to Luis Scola. In his first year with Houston, he was actually tied with Kevin Durant in free throw shots made. His first season in Houston was the year the NBA started to crack down on players that did the rip-through move to get fouls. Kevin Martin was one of the players known for his rip-through move, and he was mentioned in news articles talking about the new rule change, and it affected his game. His free throw attempts went from 8 per game in 2011 to 4 free throws per game in 2012. He also dealt with some injuries in Houston. He was out for half of the 2012 season because of a right shoulder injury. That was a big theme in his career. He got injured a lot. I'm sure all of you guys remember the James Harden trade, and Kevin Martin was one of the players shipped to the Thunder in the deal in 2012. The Thunder looked at him as a guy that was going to fill James Harden's role as the go-to scoring option while KD and Russell were resting on the bench. Even though he put up the lowest points per game since his second year in the league, he shot a career high in three-point percentage and shot over 45% from the field for the first time since 2008. So on to the 2013 season, Kevin Martin signed with the Timberwolves, and Kevin was scoring and getting to the free throw line like he usually does. In 2014, the Wolves' first season without Kevin Love, Kevin was leading the team in scoring. He was averaging 20 points per game and making 48% of his three-point shots through the first 12 games, but he dealt with another injury. He missed 78 games in 3 seasons in Minnesota because of a right wrist injury. In 2016, Minnesota bought him out and the Spurs signed him. Remember in the beginning of the video when I said that Spurs fans and the media were optimistic about Kevin Martin signing to the team? His offensive skill set off the bench on that Spurs team seemed like a perfect combination at the time. Fans on Twitter were very excited that they were adding a guy that was averaging 20 points per game a year ago onto a deep bench. He was looked at as a guy that was going to help them against the Warriors that year, but they didn't even get to play the Warriors that year because they lost to the Thunder in the conference semifinals. Kevin didn't see the floor that much in the playoffs because rotations got smaller, and his defense was not that good during the regular season. In garbage time of Game 1 versus OKC, he shot 1 of 7 from the field and missed his one and only three-point shot. Even though he wasn't making shots and was not good on defense, San Antonio was a big change for him. Kevin Martin went from starter minutes to getting inconsistent bench minutes, and in those minutes he did play, he was missing three-point shots and not playing good perimeter defense. That season with the Spurs would be his last, and Kevin Martin announced his retirement before the start of the 2016-2017 season. I know circumstances are different from every player and players react to injuries differently, but Kevin Martin was somebody that didn't rely on explosive athleticism to score, so I just assumed he was going to be able to keep playing until 2019 as a bench guy on a contender, but that didn't happen. Even though he was a good numbers on a bad team type of player, Kevin Martin had a pretty successful career. He was a pretty efficient scorer. I thought he was going to play longer. He's probably one of the more forgotten 20-point per game scorers of the last 15 years. I hope this video was interesting to listen to. Someone requested this video topic a while back, so I thought I'd do it now. Any other video suggestions, let me know, and I'll see you guys in my next one.
Great. From the fans, it was everything that